Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bales Sport Collective. Tonight we are here with Kevin Pratt and his Mustang collection. Let's go ahead and see what we're going to experience tonight. All right, Kevin, thanks for thanks for hosting us tonight in your amazing hall of Mustangs.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming down. I appreciate you both coming down and doing this.
It's been years and I've wanted to come down here, and you just returned just a couple days ago from last night, late model restoration, 25th anniversary meet at Texas Motor Speedway.
Yep. Yeah, so it was great.
You drove down there with
trailer down my R. Okay. Went down Thursday, drove 12 hours down. Stayed hotel, went set up on Friday, and then Saturday morning got there early, and it was an awesome show.
How many Cobra R's there this year?
We had 8, I believe, Cobra R's this year. Last year we had 12.
Okay.
Next year is the 25th anniversary for these, so we're hoping to get more out there.
Yeah, no, twist my arm.
Yeah, yep. It's a fantastic show. LMR puts on a fantastic show. It's free to the public. We had, I think it was like 2,000 plus cars there, all Mustangs, Lightnings, trucks.
Because they let you go in the paddocks. They put the special cars.
They do. So all these R's, we had 8 R's, we had 2 93 R's, we had, I believe, 2 95 R's. And then what's nice is during the day, halfway through the day, 11:30, they stop all the road course and oval, and they let all the R's go out to the road course. So we did the road course this year, oval last year, road course before that. So
how fast do you get that up to on the oval?
On the oval, I think I got to like 120, 130.
Okay.
And that for this, because it's a garage queen, right?
I know.
It has 1,400 miles on it. That's the most I've ever beat on it. Was at the oval, and
I take it when the other R drivers are coming off, though, somebody's claiming that they hit the top speed. So what was that? No,
I think the front they probably hit about 130, 135 coming off of there. We were supposed to keep it low profile, but of course you get out there, and
of course.
So no, it's fun. It was a lot of fun. The road course was a lot of fun. This car is, I mean, as you know, the suspension of this car is unbelievable. Ford rated this car the best handled Mustang until the 350 came out in 16.
Correct.
Well, 15, but 15 there was only a handful of them, but 16 was the true 350. And I believe it. So the first time I got this car, I took it up to Telluride for Cars and Colors, and I drove it down to the show, and I went from the airport down and the windy roads, and I got on that a little bit. I couldn't believe it. I mean,
so you might know Ray Cody then.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah, we're working with Ray for this year.
And you went down this year?
I did not. Fortunately, my wife's niece got married over that same weekend, so I couldn't go. But we're doing all Ford day, all Ford weekend next September.
That's right. So, we talked about this. And have you been to the gated shifter yet? Have you seen his building?
I've seen pictures of it. I haven't been up there since. I was going up there for Cars and so a couple of those pictures up there are from Cars and Colors up there, but I hadn't been up there for a couple of years. So.
Yeah, for branding purposes now, it's called the Autumn Classic, right?
Yeah.
So Ray does a great job with that event.
He's a great guy.
He is. Yeah, I've heard that you bring that out to a track, and that's everything that a 911 is for reliability, to be able to beat on it all day long and then drive it home.
Absolutely. Yep, that car is a phenomenal car. I've had so the Track Attack. I've been 3 times. Fortunately, I've had 3.
Where's that held at?
So 350 was in Utah, and then GT500 was in North Carolina at the Speedway. So I did the oval, 140 off the oval with this thing. Funny, because I always tell people I hit my limit in that car on the Track Attack. I took it to the cars limit on Track Attack for the 350. That car is just amazing. I mean, short story, a good friend of mine, Porsche guy, managed all Porsche dealerships, western half the United States. I'd always show up at Cars and Coffee with my Shelbys and Mustangs, and he'd always give me a hard time about it.
Of course.
You get a brand new 911 every spring.
He's a Porsche guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Brand new Cayman every winter. And I tell the story all the time because it just cracks me up. So he retired from Ford. We met up at a car show, and well, I was at a car show. He pulls in the GT500, and I was like, "Wait a minute!" I was like, "Am I seeing this right?" And he says, "You know, I've driven every car out there. Huge Porsche fan." He goes, "Ford knocked it out of the park with this car." He said the transmission is amazing. So he bought it down south somewhere and drove it back. He said he had a smile from ear to ear. So coming from a Porsche guy, that's a compliment to that car.
Porsche makes an amazing car.
Absolutely.
And for him to say, "I have fun in this too, and I want one or have one,"
yeah,
that's a big compliment.
Yeah.
They're not in the same league. Maybe.
No, they're not. Well, when the 350 came out, their goal was to compete against the GT3.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they got very close track times with this. We had a lot of Porsche guys jumping from the 911s to the 350s back when they came out because of affordability, and you can take it to a track and beat on it. And then this car came out. That to me is, you know, they're both good track cars, but you know, the gears in this one, banging this thing is phenomenal. So
yeah, I could go on for an hour about how great I think the 350 is, and we all know, you know, the probably over-exaggerated issue with the motor and the oiling issues.
Right.
It's still a real problem, but that's what a flat plane can do sometimes.
Yeah.
So the new Ford GTD or GT3 that they can't call it. Did you try to get an allocation?
No. Mainly because I little upset how Ford did it. The allocation was very limited.
Yes.
And then you had to do all this stuff, YouTube, promotion, send them all your VIN number, you know, all this stuff for it. And I was like, you know, I'm a Ford guy. I've been a Ford guy since I was born, right?
Your VIN list, though, that you would send over would have been great.
It would have, but I was disappointed because I think for a Mustang, the price point of it, I understand everything they did to it, 50-50 weight distribution, the same engine. It's a phenomenal looking car, but I'm like a rival with Chevy, although, you know, I do have, it's my wife's car. I have a 69 Camaro in the other garage. I'm not a Chevy guy, but Ford needs to do something to compete against the Corvette. They could have made the GTD at a price point would have been phenomenal to go against the Vet, but make the allocations a little bit more. Instead of doing this 750, whatever they're doing, make it a couple thousand a year and sell them. So I get it, the carbon fiber body and stuff, but at the end of the day, people are going to spend $400,000 on a Mustang.
I wonder, and I know there's not a lack of Ford enthusiasts,
right?
But at that price point, it does cut. All it does is, I think, bring in Ford GT enthusiasts.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, or at least the inclination I got, when they terminated the GT program and everyone who still had allocations hadn't gotten in their car yet.
Right.
And then we wanted to know why. And then they debuted the GTD and you're like, oh, because it took everything to make a Mustang try to perform on the Nürburgring like Ford GT.
Right.
But are you getting the enthusiast buying it? Or are you, like, I will say this. It sounds like Ford's doing a good job of giving the allocations to people who actually use them.
Yeah.
That I hope. Because these were sold, only to race teams?
Yes. Yeah, it was very hard to get those. Yeah.
Yeah, and now they're on the open market, but at the time, I believe you had to have a race license.
Race license, and you had to know somebody, and yeah, it was just, well, plus limited. That was 300 too, right? So very limited. Yeah, I'm with you.
You don't want to discredit the fact that they had to do what they thought they had to do. At
right.
the same time, I think we're all a little bit sour that you put a huge price point on it because you wanted to compete essentially with Porsche, it seems like at this point, not with Corvette.
Right.
And then now you're wondering if the enthusiasts are going to be out there. And all we can hope is that we cross our fingers that there's at least, like I said, a handful of YouTubers that are going to go out and beat the crap out of them on roads.
That's what I hope.
Show them, drive them. Because I think there was a fair amount of people that did that with the 350R. I know a couple people that bought them as mostly track cars and then drive them to work on occasion.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
and I know several people who have GTD allocations, and they said they're going to buy it and it's going to sit in the garage for a couple of years. So.
No.
Yeah. So you know, if they made that price point and increased the allocations, I think they would have hit a home run.
Do you think we're 10 years away from that changing like it did for these, or do you think they're always going to be garage queens? In which, no criticism, you have several garage queens in here.
Oh, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Mine are low. All my cars are pretty much low miles.
Now, in your defense, we have a Heritage back here, GT500, and then you have the driver.
Yes.
And you will drive that one.
Yes, I will. I've been reluctant to put miles on it, but recently I said, you know what? Life's too short.
Yeah.
That car is an amazing car to drive. So yes, I have this one that I haven't driven except from the dealership to my trailer and into here, but that car will get driven next year.
So we will do a walkthrough of each and individual car,
Sure.
But tomorrow you have to peel away each car. What's the last car with tears in your eyes that would leave this garage? Pry it from your dead, lifeless hands. Which one? R. It would be your Cobra R. Yeah. Why?
I think just because the sentimental of, what that car is. When I was a kid growing up, with Mustangs, I really liked the 93 R that came out with. There was a 107 allocation. The 95 R, loved that body style. I had a 94. Wasn't crazy about the interior color they put in that one. I don't know why. Yeah,
it's like hearing aid beige.
Yeah, and I'm like,
really fluffy seats.
Yeah, and I'm like, what were they thinking on that?
And they went white with it and went back to red.
Right, and then when they did this one, I remember having all the articles, all pictures and stuff, but couldn't afford it. And so there was a point in my life where I could afford it, and that actually started my collection of cars. Was the R.
You've owned this how long?
I bought that in 18. So yeah, 18. I think I bought that in.
This is what started it.
Well, so I always had Mustang Cobras. Very passionate. My first was an '89 Mustang GT. Overseas, I grew up in England, so I had that over in England. Then I was fortunate to get a 94 Mustang GT out in England and fixed that. They did a lot of modifications to that. Had a blast, Autobahn, and driving in Europe with that. Moved back here with that, and then the 03 Cobra, the Terminator, came out. I was able to get an allocation, able to get one of those, and got a little crazy with mods. I would say that that probably led me to my divorce from my first wife, and then so then I decided, I kept that car. I got divorced, and fortunately met my current wife. We've been married for 15 years now, and she's a car person, thank goodness. And it was, I was gotten to a place in my career where I said, hey, I want to get another car. I got rid of my 03 to buy a 2011 convertible Shelby, thinking that was Carol's last car he had his hands on. So ordered it, got to take a tour of the plant in Detroit with my wife, which she actually really loved. And I was happy, right? I had the 2011. My wife actually brought the Celine into the marriage. So we had
this prior?
Yeah, she had
no
this.
way.
Yeah. So
your wife owned this before you met her?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's her car.
That's hers. Yeah.
How many miles are on that?
That has about 40,000. That's one of the highest ones, but I drive that. That's one of my favorite cars to drive.
Is that a Celine ProCharge car?
Yeah.
Oh,
Eddie's tuned this one for me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So she brought that into. So then we had this. We had. I had my 03, and I talked about getting the 11. Got the 11. I was happy, and then the 13 came out, and that was Carol's last hands was on this car.
So let's pause a second.
Yep.
That's a 13. Most powerful production car in the world when it came out.
662 horsepower.
Okay. And then Viper was pissed.
Yep.
Right. And they had to pony up a little bit. I say pony up for a reason. And so this is a car that's on my short list for a Mustang collection because they were monsters when they came out.
Absolutely monsters.
And
so when that came out, Chevy announced the ZL1. they're all proud of ZL1, and nobody knew this was coming out, And then Ford, right after they announced it, said fastest production, 662 horsepower. Drop the mic, 202 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And so I saw that, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. So I had Carroll Shelby sign my 11, the headrest of my 11. I thought I was set with my 11. So of course, how my brain works is like, I got to have the 13. My wife, fortunately.
Now, Carroll signed everything that was in front of him.
Right.
Which I don't discount, because the fact is the man was a living legend at the time. And there's every person that got a signature from Carroll, whether it was documented or whether they had any kind of proof or anything, it added a heartbeat to your life when that happened if you were a car guy.
Right.
And so you had him sign the headrest. Is that the only car you've ever had him sign?
Yeah, because that was my true Shelby my first Shelby I owned was in 2011. I had Cobras, SVT. I loved SVTs, but that was my first Shelby that I owned.
So before anybody would say, yeah, but he signed everything that was in front of him. He'd sign a Toyota Camry if somebody asked him to. But the fact was that was him being able to contribute continuously. I don't care what kind of endeavor you thought of it. I don't have a Shelby signed car. I would love to have one. I won't be able to have him sign it anymore. Right. But you had one, and I think that's pretty neat.
It was you had to donate to his charity, which I was happy to do, and then he signed that. But then this came out, and I was like, and there's pictures with him, with his, leaning over the engine bay, and said this is the last one that he touched before he passed, and so having a great wife, I said, hey, what do you think? And she's like, by that time it was hard to get a hold of these. I mean, they just came out, right? So I actually had the first one in Colorado.
You bought it new?
Brand new, yeah. I got it August of 2012. Traded my 11 in, and when I jumped in that car, we lived in Castle Rock. I bought it from Chapel Hills, Phil Long down here. I remember it like it was last night. It was late at night. We did the deal. Left the dealership about 8:30. Got on 25. Ford made it so you couldn't beat on this for the first 100 miles.
500?
I think it was 500 miles.
Like the Demon?
Yeah. I think it was less than that. But anyways, I get on it and just merging onto the highway and going through second and third gear without the Charger like fully. I looked at her and said, Recaro C said that this is a monster, and absolutely thrilled, because I had worked on my 11 at a pulley. I was putting out 550 horsepower stock 662. Now so Eddie's had this, BMP supercharger, Gen 2, throttle body, cold air intake. So this one Eddie I got this to 800 horsepower rear wheels. So that is an absolute beast of a car. So people ask me, what do you think? What do you like this GT500 better or that one? I said, two different cars. I said, this one is raw power, a beast, right? I'll jump into that after driving that. I'll jump into this. It takes me 20 minutes till I fall back in love with this car. Because at first you're like, it's like, okay, it's a live axle. It's just not as finesse as that. But after 20 minutes in that car, that power is unbelievable.
Before you set out on a drive, I think every guy has a ritual. So what is your ritual before you've picked the car you're going to drive that day for wherever you're going?
It's got to be clean.
The car has to be clean.
Got to be clean. I'm very but has to be. If I'm going to go out to Cars and Coffee, I'll get up at 5, come out. Fortunately, I can wash cars in here. I'll wash it. Most all of them are ceramic coated. That's PPF ceramic coated. Easiest car to wash. I can have that thing washed in 20 minutes. I get a 8 horsepower blower.
Do you do this based on your own personal pride or your own personal need?
It's not pride. It's just need. It's just I've always been like particular about how my car. Like right now, that car is dirty. I was planning on washing it, but I just ran out of time. But I don't know. It has to be clean.
Has to be clean.
Yeah. Before I put all these back, they have to be clean. That's just a pet peeve of mine. So.
Okay. Tell me about the most iconic memory you've ever had in a Mustang.
There's lots, but I think the one that really stands out to me the most was my '94 Mustang GT. Had a lot of work done to it. I had a Vortec Supercharger. Did heads. I did a bunch of that car. I was in England, so it was black. I did the Stalker body kit on it, wing and well, the wing and the hood. So the thing looked incredible,
sharp.
Being in England, everyone, Mustangs weren't sold then. It was left-hand drive. It was all American spec. Got it through the military APC sales, so had a little bit more. They do a couple other things to it. I had a good friend of mine, British friend out there, was a mechanic for TVR. I heard of TVR, so he was one of the head mechanics for TVR. Proud Brit. Took a little while to break that wall down with him, but when I did, we became best of friends. He would help me come to my house and do things at my house, so I didn't have to go through a dealership. I was young, I didn't have a ton of money, so we built this car up. Most iconic moment was being in Germany. I graduated from my master's from Bowie State, but they had the ceremony in Heidelberg, Germany. So I did a little European tour, hit a bunch of countries in the car, and before I left, we swapped the gears out. It came with 273s from Ford. We put 355s in there. My mechanic buddy Tony said, "Hey, before you take this trip, do you want me to swap the gears out?" He said, "Nah, I'm fine. I won't use that." Well,
he changed them.
No, he didn't.
Okay.
But I got to Germany. I'm, on the Autobahn and had this thing, buck 40, just cruising down the Autobahn.
In a Fox.
No, sorry, 94.
Okay.
94. So this BMW 6 Series Alpine comes up alongside me and kind of slows down, looks at the car, and then takes off. So I get behind him, and I had a good friend of mine with me, wasn't a car guy, didn't like speeds. But I got in that tunnel vision, and I could hear him screaming on the side. I could see his hands on the dash, and I got behind that Alpine 650 BMW, and we went at it. I was from about 110. I was, no joke, my front bumper was here, his back bumper was probably there, all the way to 160, and then 160 my gears topped out, and he started pulling on me. And that moment, I screamed inside. I wish that I had him change the gears back to the 273s, because I would have. I don't know what I got out of it. I had changed the speedometer, so it was a 160 speedometer, and I buried the needle at past 160. But then I felt it. It was like, no, top of the gears, and then he just started pulling. And so that was my most. And then at that time, reality all came in. I'm like, shit, I need to get on the brakes. I need to do this. And then I looked over at him, and he's like white, and he's like, you need to slow down. So, but that was my most iconic in a Mustang on the Autobahn. There's no place like driving on the Autobahn. It's phenomenal.
So, if you had a no budget build for a car, let's not isolate it to Mustangs for this one. No budget build for a car.
Oof, yeah.
What is Kevin building?
Probably the new style Ford GT body with a V8 in it.
So Coyote?
I think the 500 engine.
Okay.
Kind of what they're doing with the GTD.
Yeah.
I think that in a Ford GT, that body style would be pretty phenomenal.
When you look at the new generation Ford GT, I think that even myself takes for granted the body on that car. When you're looking through the back wheels,
right,
and it's wide open, you get it at the right angle, and then you realize you're like, I'm not trying to church it up, but it's like an F1 car with a little bit of body over those back wheels.
Yeah.
Because that car dovetails and tucks that air
yes,
right behind that cockpit.
Yeah.
And a tiny cockpit at that.
It is.
Have you driven one?
I have not. That's one car I have not driven.
How about an 0506?
No. I've had the chance to buy one. Long story short, I passed on it because it was it was probably so they came in 6. It was probably in like the 2015, 16 time frame. There was one that wasn't titled, was in the barn. At that point, he wanted I don't know, it's like 250 for it, and I just I couldn't swing at that time. Now I kick myself because, but I mean, out of the the Ford GT for the 0506, if I had to do building that one, it'd be a lot like what Grease Monkey did to that black one they built. That thing was
sinister.
Yeah, that'd probably be very similar to that. Even in the new body style too, black like that. So,
but like you said, it has to breathe V8.
It does.
The EcoBoost 3.5 is a good motor.
It is.
Raptors and stuff, right? But to have a V8 in it and then to modify it heavily, is almost a must. Because there's not enough people doing it.
Yeah. No, there's not. A good friend of mine, so he's down in Dallas. He works for a company, runs this company called Restoration Creations, and they do older Shelbys, the 60s era, but they do all carbon fiber bodies. And so I was fortunate. He was set up a plant tour for me and my buddies on Friday, and amazing vehicles they're building. They're putting in Coyotes with superchargers on them. They're doing the Whipples. They're doing a Godzilla build right now.
I think that's overrated.
Yeah,
it's a heavy motor.
It is. It's a heavy motor.
And the Coyote, the Gen 2 or even the Gen 4 now, is such a capable motor that when you look at a big block Ford, great for making it. We love it.
Yeah.
But when I see them in AC Cobras, I think of it as like, if you're going to build a classic Ford truck, throw a Godzilla in it.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you're going to do it in like a Fox body or anything, all I think of is weight.
Yeah. Well, the Coyote is, I mean, at the LMR show, there was a ton of Fox bodies there. One of my favorite body styles of the Mustang. A lot of Coyote swaps. Very done tastefully, very well. One day I may do a Coyote swap on a Fox body.
Will you do the work, or will you have somebody done it?
Well, no, I'm not. I can work on other people's car when it comes to working mine. I just have 2 left hands. I don't know what it is, but I'd probably do some of it, but farm some of it out. But was really taken. I've always liked the notchback LX Fox bodies. There was a lot down in Texas. They were just done very well. So, but no, going back to that, it'd be a Ford GT with a V8, carbon fiber, but just put the power down.
Yeah.
Give it lots.
It's
of power.
A feeling from the rumble too.
Yes.
So Kevin, in your opinion, how do you make a Chevy good? Because you have a good Chevy in the other garage.
I do. How do I make a good Chevy? The new ones, sell it, buy a Ford. No. My wife loves old cars. We had an old car when we first got married. She had a 66 Eleanor. We had too many cars at the time, so we sold that. And 5 years later, she wanted an old car again. So I told her at that point, the only Chevy that I would have in my garage would be a 69 Camaro. So did a search, looked around, found one. My brother-in-law knew he was a big Chevy guy, so I had him come look at it with me. Made the deal in Florida, brought it out here. 327 single carb with a 4-speed. So she took it out and she came back and she goes, "That's nice, but
it's an old car."
And it's just at 4th gear, I'm at 55 miles per hour and it's just screaming at me. So I found a guy up north who did a lot of Camaro work. Made a deal, put an LS engine in there with a 6-speed. Did Ride Tech airbags around it. Loved the airbags, right? Took it to car shows, dropped it, loved that look. We had the first gen of Ride Tech. We had some computer problems and kind of worked through that. Took it to another Camaro place just because there was a lot of things back and forth. Driving it back from up north, and my wife's made a comment, and she knows she can't do this. She can't make a comment about a car, and I'm not going to do anything about it. So I was driving the Camaro. She was following me, and she got home, and she goes, it looks good. I just wish it had more meats in the back. I said, problem solved. Call the guy who had it, did the work for me. I said, hey, this is what did you suggest? He goes, let's mini tub it. Took it back up there for a month or two. He mini tubbed it, built a rear end for it that's unstoppable.
How big are the tires now?
I believe they're 325s or 345s.
And it's on airbags, so it's sitting
so
low.
Okay, so then she didn't like the airbags because the computer problem's still happening where you get in and it would just adjust all the time. Ride Tech came out with coilovers that fit the place where the airbags went, direct bolt in. So I bought the coilovers, had it the stance where it was perfect for everything, and she loves it now. She drives it.
She does.
Yeah.
It's a 4-speed.
It's a 6-speed now. So the transmission came out of a Viper. LS came out of a donor car. The car
Viper trans and what LS?
It's the came out of 2002, 2001, 2002. So it's LS1. I think it's LS1 gen.
Mm-hmm.
It's a donor car, so it had some miles on it, but the LSs are bulletproof engines.
For sure.
That thing will scream. It's like a modern car, right? And I built the rear end to handle 1,000 horsepower. This thing is probably dyno naturally aspirated at 450. She doesn't need any more power than that.
No.
So
plus, I'm sure it's beautiful, and I haven't even seen it yet. So
it's a beautiful car. So that's the only Camaro. That's the only Chevy that I would take claim to ordering. However, you did mention the ZR1, the new one. That's definitely high on my list right now. But no, I'll show you the Camaro later.
Okay. So if you had the developers at Ford, if you had their ear, and you could help contribute to the next generation of Ford muscle cars, what things would you insist on?
I think they could take what they did to the 500. Granted, you don't have to call it 500. Call it a Cobra. Bring the Cobra name back. What they've learned from that, the feedback they've gotten from that, I would tell them to go look at the twin turbo route for a Coyote. Put twin turbos on a Coyote application over this application. Just look at the ZR1 did, right? They just twin turboed their engine.
Have you ever turboed one of your Mustangs?
I have not. So
why are you saying this?
Because I think they need to step it up. I think they need to get to that next power band.
So that's why you appreciate the new ZR1, because they went turbo.
Yes.
76s.
Yeah. So the only turbos I've owned was I had an F-150 EcoBoost twin turbo. That's the only turbo. I know a lot of my friends have put twin turbos in 350. I just didn't want to go that route. But I think they did a great job in that car. Right? I think that 500 is, you get in it, you beat on it all day in a track, come home and clean it, drive it as a daily next day. I think they did a really good job. I think there is some room for power in there, but also what I would say too is lighten the car. The car is so
it's heavy. A heavy car. It feels heavy.
It does, yeah. So that would be my recommendation. But who knows what they're doing? I know I know the V8 is going to continue. What they do with the next V8, if it's naturally aspirated and they are able to crank out, 600-700 horsepower.
Yeah.
But try the twin turbo. They've been successful in the EcoBoost. That thing is. My wife has a Bronco, and that thing is just so quick for a 2.7.
Yeah.
Right. They could do so much. I think if they went with a turbo setup on this.
I still stand by the joke that when we say, Bryce always asks me about like turbo or supercharger. The tried and true myth, I'll say it's a myth, but the stereotype is that the turbo guys I'm still dialing it in. And the supercharger guys are like, this is what I brought. And
right.
I think that's always the issue with turbos
is
that you're always dialing them in. But I'm okay with a motor having turbo issues on a maintenance level later on. Like it's got 80,000, 90,000 miles on the turbos and they need to be rebuilt. That's going to happen. And there's technology and materials that are going into that. You just don't hear about that with superchargers. You don't have people rebuilding superchargers nearly as much as you're rebuilding turbos. So everything comes with its like balance. Yeah. You're fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you're right. I love superchargers. I mean, they're great. I mean, the VMP on that's been ported and polished, and said Eddie did wonders to that car.
Yeah.
I had so many issues with that car with the tune because I was getting male tunes right at this altitude. I took it to him, and that car, I think it's like 20 miles a gallon, 800 horsepower.
And
right.
Eddie is, I think, an unsung hero for what he does. He was just at the Shelby factory in Vegas this past week. I was texting back and forth.
Yeah.
And he's doing most of the dealerships Ford tunings now for the aftermarket stuff.
Yeah.
I think that's, I mean, and it's funny because if you go into his shop, the reason I love going to Elite so much is because it is not as refined. It is still has the smell and the aura of an old school shop.
Right.
I mean, you and I go there quite a bit. I always have one car there all the time.
Yeah.
You know that. So I think that's what's neat about keeping those alive. A while back, I wondered whether shops were going to survive as we went to EV, or maybe we don't now, or things get more complicated. But the fact is that I think they will survive for the simple fact that there are so many older cars now that are not throwaways, that are going to be resto-modded. They're going to be maintained because we are losing a certain we're losing a certain vibe in the car community that's only going to maintain and resurrect what was. And I think like we have a great example of that here. And I'm excited to see that because there's more of an appreciation instead of throwaway vehicles anymore. We're going to see these things maintained and built and modified. And it's going to be, I think it's going to be beautiful.
I do too. And what I've seen recently too in Cars and Coffee, because Colorado, it's pretty much a set time from April, May to October, and I try to hit as much as I can on weekends. But what I'm starting to see now is younger generation of kids that are getting more into cars, more into the photography part of things. Which they go to Cars and Coffee for. But if I have a chance to show a young kid a car, explain to them, get them excited about it, I'll drop everything for that because that's the next generation that's going to bring these cars. And you're right. Hopefully the EV world takes a different turn. I think there's much more we can do as far as hydrogen, gas, all that stuff.
Same thing.
Yeah. So there's so much more to do. But these type of cars, the younger generation I am hopeful that they will continue that.
My theory on cars is that this is the next generation of art. Art and investment for the past decade has gone through the roof.
Absolutely.
And I'll be the first and not the last to say it. Let's say this. But these are going to be the next investment for art. When we see cars like this, and it may be in decades that they're more visually appealing than maybe driven, but I always refer to them as hard art because there is an uprising, I think, especially with manuals, V8s, V10s to V12s.
Yeah.
I know we're trying to like save them, but there's enough of them out there that are going to be curated in years to come, and it will be a novelty. There will be a collection side of this that we won't see more, maybe even on display, but either way, these were built, they were handmade, and I think that's what's going to be the neat thing about next generations appreciating that. And then if you get to drive, I think there'll be a time where you're like, and I get to drive it?
Right.
Like, it's a special treat. We're going to pour this really expensive 5-gallon jug into this. And then, yes, you can go drive it around there and people go, oh my gosh.
Right.
And that's, whether it's a beginning of an era or an end of an era, I think you guys like you and I will still be able to curate the love for cars.
Absolutely.
They're not throwaways.
So let me ask you a question. So 10 years ago, so 14, let's go back to 2012.
Okay.
How many cars did you have back then?
I always had one extra car.
Okay.
I always worked my ass off. I made a good amount of money working 7 days a week. And so I always had an extra car over a daily driver. I learned that lesson at an early age. because I learned that if you work on your daily driver, you won't get to work on Monday.
Right.
Because it's Sunday night and you're screwed. Parts. Right. You can't afford the $50 extra shipping to have something shipped in.
Right.
So I always had an extra car.
So now, fast forward 10, 12 years, how many cars do you have now?
I have, I think, 28 vehicles right now.
So, and that short time frame, right? I mean, look at what you've accomplished in that time frame for cars, right?
Yeah.
But also look at how things have changed. 12 years ago, it's unheard of to have a lift in your garage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And
now I'm going to have 9.
Right.
And so, that's not gluttony either. That's just, oh man, I mean, my neighbor had a party last night and they must have made 4 trips throughout the night. Hey, can I come back in the garage? Yeah. And we show the cars off and it was never, no dollar amounts got brought up. It was, one guy goes, Gen 2 Viper. I'm like, yeah, it's a 112,000 miles. It just hit 13,000 miles. He's like, man, my neighbor, this, you know how it is. Like you feel that same passion.
Well, and that's the passion, right? It's not like, oh, come look what I have. And people are like, oh, like your Viper, right? No numbers come up at all. But the fact that you can do that now, it's just, I'm very proud of the cars I have. It's not oh, look what I have. I've worked my ass off to get this, like you said, right? So, and every car, the air of these cars are very special to me. So
yeah, there is something surreal about the idea of, it's not practical. That's not the point.
Right.
Is there investment value? Yeah, cars are bad investments.
Right.
Even if, and I talked with Steven, and I'll have to mention Steven right now because he was the one that hooked us up years ago, and now we're doing this.
Yeah.
And he was the one that wanted a Cobra R.
Yeah.
And I bought it because he wouldn't buy one at the time.
Right.
And I got real excited. And then when I got to let Steven drive that car, I videotaped it because I was like, dude, this is for you. Yeah. Like you really have no idea. Maybe you do. This one's for you. I bought this car because you wanted it and you wouldn't buy it. And I was upset because even when other people own cars, I refer to it myself as like, oh yeah, we own that.
Oh,
we own that. Because as much as I'm not going to come down here next week and go, hey, I want to take this car out. I have some friends that are like that, and I might be more open as the years go on.
Right.
But there is a certain sentimental side of sharing either the visuals or letting them sit in it. It makes me excited, man.
Me too. Going back to the kids' generation, I have a couple of friends call me up and say, hey, I have our friend's teenage daughter or son is interested in cars. Yes, just let me know when they want to come down. And it's not to show it off. It's because they can understand. They don't, they get the history of the Fox body, Terminator, 350, an R, right? A lot of people. So the funny thing about the R is when people see this R, if you're a Mustang person, you know exactly what that thing is. Mm-hmm. If you're not, when I first bought this, my wife was like, "What is that?"
Yeah.
She actually bought me. I think it's still
the models over there.
No, the dice. She bought the dice to put on the hand from her. She thought it was more because of the big spoiler. She had no idea what that car was, right? But when people know what a car is, I mean, like the Terminators, the Fox bodies,
Porsches are like that too, right? You nerd out on the fact, like you might look at it and go, I don't know the difference between these. Well, that's because you don't know because you don't have a passion for it yet. And I say because you start to learn about it and you start to all the little things that you like to tease about. You're like, I get it now. I get it. You bring up that you were brought home in a Ford.
Yeah.
I brought my wife to the hospital in a Tesla, but since his name was Ford, I went back and got the Ford Expedition and brought him home in the Ford because
that's funny.
Yeah, I had to make sure that it was christened properly.
Right. No, so that's how my dad was, pretty much the one who started that passion for me. So hopefully my daughter takes off. She wants a Mustang eventually.
Yeah.
But it's in my blood. So
Kevin.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks.
Thank you for hosting us at your home tonight. Absolutely. In your Mustang garage. Really appreciate the time. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.